Have you ever felt absolutely lost in every friendship you've ever had? Have you ever taken a picture like this on a Friday night because you totally misjudged the strength of a friendship and now you're dealing with the consequences? Well, let me introduce you to the concept of ranking your friends. Today, we're going to deep dive on why you might want to rank your friends, some of the systems that I looked up that other people were using, and also my own personal A+ excellent trademark rated system for ranking my friends. So welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Okay, I am well aware how insane this sounds, but please bear with me. I promise you I'm not insane. It's just I think that having clarity on how you perceive your relationships and how those friends perceive you can help to build long-lasting connections and also help to reduce conflict and reduce feeling fucking depressed because you don't know where your relationship is like with your friends. I think most of the time when I'm upset or I feel like there's something wrong with a current friendship, it's because there's an imbalance in expectation for how I perceive the friendship and how that friend perceives me. And I think that spending time to understand how you feel about your friends and considering how they might feel about you can just help you be more self-aware as an individual and help you figure out ways to better spend your time and figure out who you want to invest in as a friendship. I think there's a taboo against ranking your friends or tiering your relationships that there really shouldn't be. As much as I joke about ranking friends and how funny it sounds, it really has helped me gain a clarity that I don't think I would have without executing this practice. And it really gives me the perception to look at a friendship and consider where I want it to go in the future and whether I want it to grow or whether I've outgrown the friendship. And so we're going to talk about 3 ways that people tier or rank their friends. One that I found as an alternative to my system, one that I imagine people think of when they think of tiering your friends or ranking your friends, and then the system that I actually use. And we're also going to talk about some pros and cons to each of these systems and why you may or may not want to use them. System number 1, literally ranking your friends in order from number 1 and, further. I think this is the most fine-grained, ultimate clarity kind of system. You're going to know, given any situation you could be in, where the friendship is priority for your life at this current moment. I think in the end, it will reduce the level of decision-making that you have to make because you've already kind of made the decision once about how you want to prioritize this friendship. And from there on, you can revert back to that trust you've placed in yourself to know how you feel about this friendship. And it makes this decision-making easier by actively forcing you to consider where people fall on this list. But I think one of the biggest cons about literally ranking your friends is that there is so much to consider. My goal when personally tiering my friends is that it should feel more like an intuition. Like, how do I feel about it in this moment? By literally ranking your friends 1 through however many friends you have, you're going to have to keep an actual list of that ranking to just be able to remember how you prioritize. And I think that might be taking it a little far, personally. Not in a way that's necessarily negative. I just think it might take up a lot of brain space. That is a lot to consider. I also think in a system like this, you are comparing your friends and you're sort of pitting them against each other. Friend letter A is awesome and so is friend letter B, but A is better than B at this, or B is better than A at this. And I feel like that's maybe not helpful to pit your friends against each other. I think they should all be considered on their own merit. You know what I mean? I found this one article online that I'll link by Lauren Larson. She wrote a Wired article about how she tiers her friends. And I was reading it and it's very similar to how I do it. Lauren has a 15 tier system, which is 11 more tiers than I have. But it was interesting to see how someone else considers their relationships. And I think it's a worthwhile read. It starts out with tier number 1 as your close family, your critical lifelong friends. And from there, it sort of goes down with tier number 3 being a current romantic partner, tier 5 being some colleagues, some work friends, tier 9 being the exes that you cherish, and tier 10 being your acquaintances, with 2 tiers for enemies, tier 14 as personal enemies and tier 15 as professional enemies. Now, reading this article, I kind of loved it. I'd never considered so many tiers, and I think having what she calls micro tiers, as in 15, because they're all sort of smaller categories, is a bit too much for me to consider. I think the system that Lauren outlines is good in a way that's similar to just literally ranking your friends 1 through the number of friends you have, and that it's quite fine-grained, as in each tier represents a very specific type type of person rather than a more general or broad concept, which would be more coarse grain, which is like my system, which we're going to talk about next. And I just thought Lauren's system was really interesting to read about. I think if you're considering tiering your friends, you're probably going to come up with your own system, but she talks about some of the reasons why she found it healthy to do that. And I think we can all take a little bit of inspiration from each of these systems and coming up with our own. But now I want to talk about my system. My system is fucking awesome. I came up with it in high school. I've refined it throughout the years. And here we are today with the certified 4-tier system. Okay, so my system is a pyramid-like system with tier 1 at the top with theoretically the least number of people and tier 4 at the bottom with the most number of people. I should also say that within each tier, I don't categorize any further. If you're a tier 1 and someone else is a tier 1, in my eyes, you are of equal priority. I think it can be easy to sort of put numbers to it, like in the first system we mentioned, but I tried to avoid that because I don't want to pit my friends against each other. So tier 1 is the highest tier. These are your best friends. These are the friends that you can call having a total mental breakdown, a 2 a.m. emergency call. They're going to bail you out of jail. These are your best friends. Tier 2 are like your really, really good friends that just for some reason are not your best friends yet. They may become your best friends. You may be happy with them just being a tier 2. You generally hang out with them quite a bit outside of school or work or situations where you're forced to be with each other. You probably also tell them like important news and like maybe some of your secrets or whatever, but they're maybe not the first person you call to tell news to. Tier 3 for me is like back in the day, it was school acquaintances. Now it may just be professional colleagues, project partners, people who you get along really well with and you can talk to and be friends with, but you usually are only seeing each other in contexts where you're put together for some reason or you have some shared responsibility over something. And tier 4 is the untalked about tier, the unspoken tier. These are the people that like, oh, you've maybe heard of them, or maybe worse, you used to be friends with them and are no longer for some reason, or even worse than that, it's a don't mention them kind of person. This is your tier 4 group. People you might have history with or people you don't yet have history with, but maybe you just don't know enough to be your friend. And so that's how I rank my friends. My tier 1s, the love of my life. I have 3 tier 1s in my life. Tier 2s, the other loves of my life. I have probably like 6 tier 2s. Tier 3s and tier 4s, there's too many. Who knows? I don't know. But the way this system has evolved over the years is in high school, I would just rank people by their tier. So it would be like, this is my tier 1 friend in my head. And I can know, okay, this is my best friend, ride or die. But then in college, things get tricky. Friendships get hazy in college. They're hard to categorize into such neat categories. And that's because all of those people that you would see in social context every day at school, you no longer see every day. Because how often are you in a situation where you're seeing the same people like every day in college, but you're not hanging out with them outside of class? Doesn't super happen, especially at a big school. Similarly to that, maybe your tier 1s back home from before you went off to college are now like at a different college that you don't go to. And maybe you don't get to talk every day anymore or hang out all the time anymore. Like how can you still be tier 1s if you don't have that physical connection? Maybe you're not the first one to get the call anymore about new gossip or new drama or whatever, but you're like tier 1s. What does that mean? How does that work as a friendship? I think that was a really challenging struggle for me coming to college and adjusting to a situation where you really have to work to make friends and to cherish your friendships, not only in terms of the people you're in contact with at college, but also the friends you've left behind at home. And so in thinking about the haziness of these tiers, I added a second element to the tiering system that I think has helped me refocus. And that is that instead of just tiering someone from my perspective, thinking, I think this person is a tier 1, I also do the reverse perspective. What do I believe they perceive me as? And in that way, I can align my commitment, my interest, my frequency of reaching out to them to sort of match that. And if it's a scenario where I don't like it unmatched, then we can try and adjust. For instance, the last time I had a mismatch friendship in terms of like how I perceive them versus how they perceive me, this picture was taken, the one I showed you at the start of the video. It was really challenging. And it was actually around that time where I figured out how to include the other half of the system where I consider how someone perceives me. For that friendship, for that photo, I considered this person to be a tier 1, like a really good friend. Some things happened and it sort of showed me that I was not of the same importance to them. You know, I was like a tier 2 or tier 3. And I think if I'd had the perception to be able to consider that, it would have hurt a lot less to lose that friendship, or to have that friendship go from something super important to me to something that is not important to me. And so usually I will try to have these be matched. Like I would like a tier 1 to tier 1 kind of thing, or tier 2 to tier 2 kind of thing, where the first number is how I perceive it and the second number is how they perceive me. If I think someone's a tier 1, but I think they think I'm a tier 2, fuck, this sounds so crazy. If I think that they're tier 1, but I think that they think that I'm a tier 2, then I need to be putting in tier 2 levels of effort. I need to align with them, or I should try to really push this to be equal, and where we both become tier 1s for each other. I think that's okay too. It's really about having that perception and awareness of those around you and how they see you that I think has been helpful for me. I think it's really grounded my expectations in a positive way, because I can really cherish the people that I know love me, and I don't waste my time cherishing people who don't love me. So anyways, this is my thoughts on tiering your friends. I was Googling other YouTube videos to see who else has made YouTube videos about this. I did not find one. So maybe this is something only I do, but I just felt like, you know, this is something that has helped me, and I hope it helps you too. Anyways, thank you for joining my podcast. I'm going to move out from this side like I did last time, because I really enjoyed that. So good night. Goodbye. Good night. Goodbye. Goodbye.